The notification on Julia's phone seemed to grow larger, its words glaring at her. She stared at the photo of Kayla in the hospital, her small frame surrounded by medical equipment. A pang of guilt tightened in Julia's chest, a feeling she rarely experienced, let alone allowed herself to acknowledge. She clicked off the phone, trying to shake off the image, but the weight of her actions on the plane lingered. The rest of the conference passed in a blur. Julia nailed her presentations, secured compliments from senior executives, and even exchanged a handshake with the company's CEO. But her usual thrill of success felt hollow. Kayla's innocent face and Daniel's quiet dignity kept surfacing in her mind. That evening, back in her hotel room, Julia found herself pacing. She replayed every snide remark she had made to Daniel. Her pride pushed back. Why should I care? It's not like I did anything wrong. But deep down, she knew better. On a whim, Julia reopened the news app and read the article again. It mentioned a fundraiser for Kayla's treatment with a link to donate. Julia hesitated, scrolling through the campaign page. The goal was daunting, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they were far from reaching it. I could help, she thought. But why should I? It's not my problem. She closed the tab. The next morning, Julia arrived early at the airport, ready to fly home. She spotted a small coffee stand and decided to grab a latte before her flight. As she waited in line, she overheard a familiar voice nearby. Thank you for your support. Kayla means the world to me, Daniel said into his phone, standing a few feet away with his back to her. He looked exhausted but determined, holding a duffel bag and a folder, likely filled with medical documents. Julia's heart raced. She considered walking away, pretending she hadn't seen him. But something in her pushed her forward. Sergeant Parker, she said, her voice hesitant. Daniel turned, surprised to see her. His polite smile didn't quite reach his eyes. Ma'am, he replied, a hint of weariness in his tone. Julia fumbled for words. I saw the news article about your daughter. I didn't realize. She trailed off, feeling awkward and out of place. Daniel nodded, his expression guarded. She's a fighter, he said simply. Julia swallowed hard. Look, I want to apologize for how I treated you on the flight. I was out of line. Daniel studied her, his gaze unreadable. Apology accepted, he said after a pause. But it's not about me. It's about Kayla. Julia nodded, feeling both humbled and foolish. Is there anything I can do to help? Daniel hesitated before answering. We're just trying to raise enough for her surgery. Every little bit helps. Julia pulled out her phone and reopened the fundraiser page. Without thinking twice, she entered an amount 5 figures. The confirmation screen popped up and she showed it to Daniel. His eyes widened in disbelief. Ma'am, you didn't have to. I wanted to, Julia interrupted. For the first time in years, she felt like she was doing something meaningful. Back on her flight home, Julia couldn't shake the strange sense of peace that settled over her. She realized she wasn't just helping Daniel or Kayla. She was beginning to confront a part of herself she had long ignored. Meanwhile, Daniel received a notification about the donation. He stared at his phone, then glanced out the hospital window where Kayla was asleep. For the first time in weeks, hope felt within reach. To be continued.